services investigations for those individuals where unfortunately we see abuse, neglect, or financial exploitation. On the good side, we have trips and travel. We have activities and programs for our seniors. We're open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Any senior who is interested can come in at any time and participate in the activities. We have exercise equipment. We are supported by King's Daughters United Way and Illinois Department on Aging. We also have services through senior transportation for individuals who need a ride to their medical appointments, or if it's just to the grocery shop or to just get your hair done. We also have elder assistance services and caregiver specialist programs. For those individuals who are being kind of thrust into that role of caregiver for a loved one, sometimes they're kind of the silent sufferer because they're kind of hidden. They're doing a lot of the hard work for the loved one that they have, but yet maybe those services aren't available. So we're there to help the caregiver as well as the senior who is needing our services. We also have a lot of evidence-based programs where we work with seniors for a matter of balance. That is falls prevention. We have services for individuals who are savvy caregivers, for individuals who are looking to age well, in our Aging Mastery program. Those are like 10 and 8-week programs that people can sign up for. We also have probably what we're known for a lot is our Daily Bread, where we're delivering those meals to seniors that are homebound. Typically our services are for 60 years of age and older. And we also have our Springfield Specialty Meals on Wheels, which is for individuals who have more of a specialized diet. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we're doing. So,
thank you. And Marcus, can you share with us programs at the Urban League?
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. My name is Marcus Johnson, the President and CEO of the Springfield Urban League. I'm very excited to share and see so many of our partners, not only in the room, but on the stage with us today. The Springfield Urban League, one of the greatest things to talk about ever, is an institution that's been in the Springfield community since 1926. And so I think that's something that's fairly missed in the community is how long this institution has been here. Birthed out of the smoldering conditions of the 1908 race riots, the Springfield Urban League was born to address the conditions in workforce, education, and now today, 96 years old, we are addressing workforce, education, housing, healthcare, justice. Our pillar programs that most individuals know are our Head Start programs and our early Head Start programs, which serve children between the ages of 0 and 5. But what most don't know is that we serve over 500 children between 0 and 5, not only in Springfield, Illinois, but in Jacksonville as well. And that our workforce programs extend not only across Central Illinois, serving Decatur, Springfield, and Jacksonville, but we also have an office in the Chicagoland area where we're training state WIC workers to understand their unique responsibilities of serving women and children across the state of Illinois. Our programs, services, resources are all designed to ensure that individuals are financially stable, that children have the opportunity to excel in life, to choose a trade or a school or a life that they deserve, to have the belief that they can do and become the things that their children or their parents or their grandparents dream that they can be. Across COVID-19, we understood the unique challenge that we had as an economic first responder. Our role was unique in that we really didn't have the opportunity to stay at home or remote services. We received calls daily to do the things that we've been doing over the past 96 years. Our biggest highlights when it comes to COVID and the things that we've been able to do really focus on our emergency assistance programs, and not just the ones that provide rental assistance or housing assistance, which are fairly traditional, but it was those phone calls for individuals who needed assistance with burial costs. It was students who were trying to understand the unique challenges of going off to college for a first time and paying tuition for a university that they didn't even get the chance to attend in person. It was assisting seniors travel and get medications in our own version of DoorDash that we called the Empowerment Cart. It was helping individuals to navigate the divide that was already in our community and provide those resources to fill it. So who is the Springfield Urban League? We are a 96-year-old institution that serves individuals from birth to golden years. Education, jobs, justice, health, and housing. That is who we are.
Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you.
And Gus, can you kind of give us an overview of not only the Hoogland, but many of your partners?
I sure will. Good morning, everybody. My name is Gus Gordon. I'm the executive director here at the Hoogland Center for the Arts. I started here in 2007 in a part-time capacity and then came aboard full-time in 2012, and I've served as the executive director since 2013. It's a little interesting being up here with this great panel today. We all provide something different to the community. These folks provide things that are life-altering. The arts are a little different in that respect, but I would argue that the arts are not perhaps as important, but very important to our community and for the emotional well-being of people in our society. The Hoogland Center for the Arts started on December 31st of 2003. The former Masonic Temple was up for sale, and Kay Fuhrer with the Arts Council, I think, was the first person to have the idea of transforming this beautiful building into a state-of-the-art art center. So Kay started a study, I guess, back in the late 1990s, and a group of great volunteers came together to form Springfield Arts Center, Inc., and they went to work buying the building from the Masons. They went to work raising money to transform the building, and then opened the building on December 31st of 2003. What makes us unique is we're not just one thing. We're not just a theater. We're not just a dance studio. We're not just a place where choral groups come together. One friend of mine referred to the Hoogland as the heart of the arts. And she said this because so many different art forms are represented here. Visual art, orchestral music, choral music, folk dance, ballet, theater, musicals, concerts, the poetry with the Springfield Arts Council, Springfield Area Arts Council, film. So many different things are represented here. We have many different resident organizations. We have about 20 different groups, and each of these groups is their own individual organization with their own individual boards and their own individual mission statements, and they're housed here at the Hoogland. And I think what we've accomplished over the years is to bring all these different groups together and help spread their visibility throughout the community and become a central place, a hub, if you will, for arts activities in the community. One of the things that's the most important aspect of what we do is the educational aspect. Many of our resident organizations have programming for children, like the Springfield Theater Center's PAVE program, or the Copper Coin Ballet Company, or the Youth in Harmony that's put on by the Land of Lincoln Barbershop Chorus. So education is a very important factor, and our own Hoogland Education Department, which just started again last week, and we have almost 200 kids involved in the program, and it has been so rewarding to see these young people come back into the building after 2.5 years of spotty availability and attendance. Another thing that makes us interesting is we kind of straddle a line between professional and amateur. We do bring in some professional shows, but mainly this is about people who work 9 to 5, and then at 5:30 or 6 they come here and then they do what they love, whether it's singing, whether it's dancing, whether it's acting, whether it's playing an instrument. So this is where they come to share what's in their heart. And I think that makes us a very important place for the emotional well-being of a lot of folks in the area.
Thank you. Thank you to all three of you. We certainly want to recognize the Citizens Club as one of your partners, one of your people that are here, and we enjoy that. I want to start, and I'll start with you, Gus, as you're talking about your programs. What were some of the greatest challenges that you now referenced 2.5 years ago?
Right.
When COVID started and you started dealing with that, what were the greatest challenges so many of your partners had?
Well, I think with the arts, we were among the first to close and among the last to reopen because of this very reason, because we have people in a congregate setting. We can't have an auditorium full of 400 people in the middle of a pandemic. So we really had to shut our doors on Friday the 13th of March 2020. That was also the weekend with the Ides of March, so it was just a bad weekend altogether in hindsight. But it stopped everything. With the stay-at-home order, everything stopped. Truthfully, if you had asked me in early April of 2020 whether we would survive, I could not have answered that question. We were going to lose all of our earned income, and that's basically what we survive on. We have a few sources of income: ticket sales, rental, education classes, sponsorships, donations. We had a few grants here and there, but that was not something we were focused on, and that changed. We went from production mode to fundraising mode, and one of the most touching things that happened was we started receiving checks from our donors, unsolicited and sizable, and they would say, hey, I know this has to be tough on you guys. You've lost all your income, and I know that this is a big 80,000 square foot building that still has bills coming in. And so some of our donors came forward immediately, and that was amazing. And we are so grateful, and we're here today because of those donors. Then we started fundraising more in earnest with actual solicitations. People were saying, well, maybe you shouldn't ask right now because everyone's scared, but we learned that no, you can ask. They can always say no, and that's fine, but people did want to help, and we were so fortunate to learn that. Also, it finally made me get up and do something I should have been doing years ago, and that was learn how to write a grant. I had written a few small grants over my years here, but we really had to start doing that in earnest. So we, first off, we had a gentleman on our finance committee, Eric Flick, who works at Marine Bank, and he called immediately saying, hey, let's get you guys set up with a PPP. And I was a little oblivious to this, and I said, okay, thank you. And so Eric really got the ball in motion for that. Then we were able to receive that, and we started applying for other grants. The most recent one was the SVOG, the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, which was a bit of a nightmare, but worth it in the end. It was very disorganized. Misinformation was coming left and right on how to apply, who's eligible, all of that, but it did pay off for us. We received around $300,000 to help us through that period, because our bills didn't stop, obviously. We did a lot of cutbacks. We kept the full-time staff on, the part-timers, the box office personnel, the security guards. We kept them on as long as we could, but we did keep the full-time staff on, and we just cut things to the bare bones. And we just changed our focus from producing. One of the things that an actor will say, or someone in the arts in general, is the show must go on. And I've learned you have to be flexible, and the show doesn't always have to go on. The world will still be there, and we can do the show another day. And that's been the main lesson, is we just have to be flexible. And we've had problems thrown at us every day for the past 2.5 years, all kinds of different things. And you just have to deal with it. And I have a favorite saying, and that is, this too shall pass. And usually it does. And again, we're here today thanks to many of you in this room right now, and many of the people watching, and we are very grateful for that.
Thank you. Marcus, same question. Greatest challenges that many of your programs faced?
Well, there were quite a few. As a nonprofit organization, one of the most challenging aspects of it is that we rarely receive dollars to build the capacity of the agency. So what does that mean exactly? Often we receive funding for service delivery and not for us to enhance our infrastructure, to buy equipment, desks, chairs, computers, technology. And so one of the biggest challenges that we had was transforming the 26 different programs that we have into programs that could still continue providing the necessary services that we offer the community. We are an economic first responder. That is who we were before COVID-19. That is who we are as we continue to adjust to what we still see as a shifting new normal. And as we prepare for the new challenges that we see, not only with monkeypox, but quite like the other things that are coming down the pike. But our challenges really were identifying the ways that we can bridge the gaps that were already there. How do we stop the widening digital divide between children in underserved communities? How do we equip children and families and re-equip parents in their role as the first teacher? And so we joined in with several of our partners, again, those here in the room, the Springfield Public School District 186, as well as multiple community agencies to fill the gaps that were left vacant in the community. At times, myself personally, I felt as if I was working for the Housing Authority or the state of Illinois with the number of questions that I received or the assistance that we were providing to assist individuals in filling out simple forms in person. We shut down very briefly. And when we shut down, it was just March through, I believe, about 45 days we were back in the office. And that was because the number of calls and the expectation that we have as a mission-driven organization to empower the community and change lives was to be there, to be in person, and to provide those resources. Our challenges were, how do we deliver services in person safely? As a job developer, as an institution that people come to, hundreds every single year, unduplicated hundreds, to identify and to support them in getting jobs, attaining jobs, and being elevated in their jobs. One of the charges that we had was to make sure that we didn't have to lay off anyone. And we did that. And that was one of the greatest successes that we had. But that came with challenges. How do we keep 167 staffers safe? How do we keep teachers who are teaching 0 to 5-year-old children safe? How do we deliver food, and how do we do the things that we do? How do we work one-on-one with individuals while also balancing the COVID regulations, the state regulations, the federal regulations, while also maintaining safety for the community and those who are most at risk? We did that by being flexible, being adaptable, but also asking and talking and sharing the mission of the Urban League. We are excited about the progress that we've made, the capacity that's been able to build out to provide laptops and hotspots and Wi-Fi connectivity to serve and help the community in different ways. Our challenges have now become our strengths, and we are excited to continue making those challenges opportunities for us to continue empowering the community.
Thank you. Certainly one of the things I know that nonprofits faced, we were all challenged with the word essential when COVID started. And when you think of a non-for-profit, whether it's serving a child, someone trying to get a job, or a senior, essential was in the heart of your staff in terms of who wanted to work. So I know it was critical. So Carol, same thing. For programs that are essential for the clients you're serving, some of the first and biggest challenges you faced.
So I kind of break it down into our staff, our seniors, and our volunteers. We have a great staff. As you mentioned, Marcus, we were very, very blessed. We did not have to lay off. Actually, we were trying to hire more people because we are an essential service program. Seniors were going to still need meals. Even though the community was shut down, they needed us even probably more so than just on your average day. So what we found was through our staffing, one of our biggest challenges were that we were not allowed out into the homes. Under the guidance of the Illinois Department on Aging, we had to, one, protect our staff, we had to protect the seniors, and we had to make sure that we were doing the best service possible under very restrictive orders. So what we did is we figured out really quickly that we needed to adapt, and we're always talking about, don't get scammed. But then we call you up and we're like, hey, we have to do your assessment over the phone. Can you give us your social security number? So, it's kind of like, well, what did you want me to do? So that really was a challenge. We weren't really allowed out into the homes for abuse and neglect cases. Unless it was a priority one, we had to do a lot of things on the porch of that or on the doorstep, and we could not walk in, or we were limited to 15 minutes, or all of those things. So we knew that there were things going on that we could not help with at that point. Our congregate were shut down. Seniors were not able to come into the center. A lot of times we have seniors that come in Monday through Friday to our center and just have socialization. That was a big challenge. Social isolation is such a big part of the senior population anyway, and it just magnified that. We found a lot of our seniors home care services because, again, staff shortages and turnover, they weren't getting those services into their homes like they needed, or they were too fearful of having someone come into their home. So it was just kind of a vicious cycle a lot of times. We also had volunteers. Our services we have to have volunteers. They're the ones out there doing the tough work with delivering those meals. They're the ones that are coming in helping us with our money management. They're doing all those things, and we had a huge drop in our volunteers. Again, we understand why, but it's hard to adapt all of those things. So we figured out very quickly we have a hard-working team. Our nutrition team, we never closed. We couldn't close, but yet we had to go from Monday through Friday delivery all the way to getting meals prepped up for 2 days to get all of those meals out so our senior didn't miss their meals. So I cannot say enough kudos to the team that I work with. But it was just kind of one of those things where we really, really tried to adjust to the best of our ability. I've never shopped for more groceries in my life because we figured out very quickly we needed emergency meal plans. We needed to make sure that those programs, those seniors who needed that care, that person who was trying to get to their radiation appointment or their chemo or their dialysis, we had to really, really be protective of them from a senior transportation point of view. So those were some of our key struggles.
And so I've heard flexibility, I've heard needing to adapt. This is to all of you, but I don't care who goes first. Can you tell me about how you were able to adapt some of those programs? To many of us, the full adaptation was Zoom. At the program level, there had to be more than that. Anybody want to take first in terms of some of the adaptations you did that were successful and helped your clients?
Sure. The first, I'll go back to a quick challenge, but the challenge was how do we teach 0 to 3-year-olds via Zoom? There is only so much that we can do to, outside of laying the iPad or the tablet down, how do we log them in and get them going and learning? And so our biggest adaptation was looking at the ways that our curriculum that we provided our children, how could that be adapted to parents? How do we now train parents again to serve as that first teacher? We're home because of the stay-at-home orders, and so there's time and opportunity. And so we not only adapted the curriculum for the children, but we also adapted our parents as teachers' curriculum, teaching about financial literacy and rental assistance and home mortgages, teaching about opportunities to create budgets now in the pandemic and then after. And so our adaptation was, now that we have the parents in a position where they have to teach their children, especially the 0 to 3 population who cannot log themselves into Zoom, we have to adapt by educating the parents on their unique but necessary role as their first teacher, not just teaching ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, and colors, but the things that will secure generational wealth. And so that was one of our greatest adaptations, teaching parents their unique but a very, very important role when it comes to early childhood development, and educating children 0 to 3 via an iPad.
Great. Other adaptations for programs?
Well, to perform a show, you have to have an audience and you have to have actors on stage, and none of that was possible, of course. So we had to enter foreign territory for us in learning how to record a show semi-professionally and then streaming it, and then how to get that to people's houses. It was all about engaging not only our audience and keeping our name in front of the public, but also engaging the actors and performers somehow, because I don't know about you, but I know myself and my wife, during the pandemic, a lot of our habits changed. And it's like, well, do I really want to go out tonight, or do I want to go to bed at 8? I don't know. So we had to kind of deal with that, but that's after the pandemic when people were coming back. But we had to, and this is all of our resident organizations, the ballet company at the time, the youth symphony, the theater center, the Hoogland itself. We all had to learn how to tape shows. We had to learn how to do it safely on stage. We did a production of a musical called Songs for a New World, a 4-person cast. We picked small shows, and they were all masked on videotape. When they would sing a solo, they would take the mask off because the camera operators were 30 feet away. But at that point, we didn't know how deadly this was, how contagious it was, how close you had to be. That was all still very nebulous, and we didn't have an answer for that. We even did a radio show that was taped of Dracula, and the actors would come up to the mics, take off their masks, look straight ahead, not look at one another to, possibly spread contaminants. So we had to figure out things like that. Many of those things might look a little silly in hindsight, but at the moment, with the information we just had to adapt. I know with the ballet company, they went to, I think it was Landmark, and performed in their, I don't know if it was their showroom or their garage. They had to open the doors, so they were outside. There was fresh air circulating. With the ballerinas, it was a little easier because they could wear their masks. With choral groups, they can't really do that. And a lot of the choral groups just had to take 2 years off. So people are very rusty coming back. And there's a lot of people going, I feel a little silly because those problems compared to what these folks are talking about, it seems very, very different. And I have so much respect for the things that you all have had to go through. But we've all had to adapt in many different ways to keep what we do viable and in front of people, because to be gone for 2 years would have meant doing nothing, and not having our name out there would have been very difficult to reopen.
Thank you. Carol, adaptations for your program.
So I will say, I had mentioned this to Gus earlier, I feel like really honestly, when I look at the arts and I look at senior services and I look at the Urban League, we really are all in a circle of support to each other, because part of that social isolation was the connection to the arts. It was getting out and being social and being part of what we do and our hobbies and all of our activities. And a lot of our seniors, they have, we have dance classes and art classes and all those things at senior services as well. And they missed that. They missed having those connections because it is part of our life. It's part of being healthy, interactive. So how we adapted staffing wise, we figured out that IT was our friend most days until it glitched out, and then we figured out we didn't like it anymore. But remote work is possible in casework. It really is, to the point where I had to say to people afterwards, no, really, you have to come back sometime. Like, you got to come on back. We figured out that you always figure out, hey, your seniors, your volunteers. You appreciate your volunteers, but you don't really appreciate your volunteers until you're really, really struggling. So we learned a lot of ways to do adaptation with our seniors, making sure that they have activity bags and goodie bags. We figured out that we can make a lot of meals in a short period of time. We also know that we can do Zoom exercise classes. And interestingly enough, we still do our exercise classes on Zoom, so you can either come in person or on Zoom. A lot of those things really surrounded the idea of technology. And for us, Zoom meetings, even though I complain about them, I get to participate in meetings and through Microsoft or Zoom that I can hop on, and I don't have to travel 2 hours to get to, or I don't have to go back and forth. Unfortunately, they think you're supposed to do them back to back a lot of times, so that kind of gets a little conflictive. The other thing is we've been very blessed because we really did have to adapt to the environment. We had to put up a lot of protective shields. We purchased a lot of PPE in order to meet face-to-face with our seniors who needed us. We ended up buying a lot of protective shields. We, as I say, COVID was very hard to work around, but because of the support we received, we were able to put up a lot of cubicles and really update some of our services. And that probably, sadly enough, wouldn't have happened without COVID. So I say there were good things and definitely some bad things, but adapting wise, my team can do it. I'm solid on that.
So it leads me a little bit towards, were there lessons learned, opportunities gained that we still have in place and that we will keep in place? Certainly grant writing is probably still in place, but did we learn things that are going to make us better going forward?
Yeah, I mean, for us, I think that we have learned really easily that what our seniors can work with and what they can't, what our team members can work with. We really can provide a lot of services virtual or through the phone. We can make sure that our seniors are connected through some of the arts, even if it is on some of the Zoom and virtual and activities that we do. We also want to, social isolation, we need that human connectivity. But one of the things that we've adapted is even during the winter months now, we actually have emergency food bags that if we have a holiday, individuals, we are prepped up for that. We weren't really prepared for that a lot of times when it came to the meals. We have really adapted a lot of our services to make sure that no matter what happens, we can kind of, and I always say the pivot word was used a lot, but it really is pivot to that next direction. So,
Marcus?
Very much the same. We learned that there are ways to do almost everything. There's a way to pivot when it comes to service delivery, and there are ways to express the unique needs that we have to grant funders and funding institutions and volunteers and partners. There's a way to make an ask now of the community that wasn't there before. One of the greatest opportunities, and that might be challenging to hear of COVID, when we reference COVID and the pandemic, was that it did serve for us in our work as the great equalizer in a lot of ways. There were individuals who had never accessed the resources of the Springfield Urban League who were now interested or in need of services or were unsure of where to go or what to do, that we were able to attract to our services and provide those opportunities to receive, but also educate their neighbors or their friends on those resources. So it really provided opportunities for us to change the way we look at how we deliver services. And it provided opportunities for us to reach individuals who never saw the Urban League as an option. But now, those who saw it as an opportunity and received support services in their time of need are now mentors and coaches, and some are even staff who say that the way that the Urban League supported them in their time of need is a calling for them and a way that they want to give back their time and their talent as we adjust to COVID-19.
Great. Gus, any lessons learned that are still?
Sure. I think there's a line in the movie Jurassic Park that life will find a way. And I think what I learned during the pandemic is art will find a way. And the need for people to express that, what's inside them, either singing or acting or painting or playing an instrument or dancing, they will find avenues to do that. And like you said, the people who can't get out to see these productions, we still have that need to have entertainment in our lives. And I'm sure many of you really increased your Netflix and Disney Plus and all those kind of subscriptions during the pandemic to keep you occupied. But one of the things we did when we recorded some of these shows is we went to some of the retirement homes that we work with, like Concordia Village. And we would just say, hey, here's a link to this production, share it with your residents so they can all enjoy it. We did some things that were in the public domain. And so we were able to just let them share that with some of their residents. And it's just, we learned that art is very important for a person's well-being, mental well-being. One of the things we did during the pandemic is we started a web series in partnership with Memorial Behavioral Health, because we recognized early on that people were going through a lot with the isolation, with the stress, with the uncertainty of what was going on. And so we put together this series. Dr. Lee Steiner and Diana Kanabi partnered together. Both Lee's was our president at the time, and also the chair of the Memorial Behavioral Health. We put together these webisodes that gave mental health tips on how to deal with some of these issues, and then we paired them with musical numbers or a piano player playing a tune while a painter was painting, and just to again keep our audience engaged, keep our performers engaged, and hopefully offer something that someone would find helpful. And we did hear back from many of our patrons say, hey, that was really nice, and we appreciated that. The whole world of streaming is that might be the first new form of a revenue stream that we've discovered in a very long time, because the arts houses, the people who hold the licensing rights to shows, for the very first time ever made it possible for you to tape a show and record it and then send it out there into the universe. They have never before done that. Many of these groups still allow that under certain conditions. So that opens up possibilities for people who can't get out, people who are still worried about getting out in big groups of people and they don't feel comfortable yet. This provides them with an opportunity. We haven't continuously done this, but we have done it with many shows where we have provided that as another option. Another way it's a revenue source I can foresee is that if a child is in a show and has grandparents in Florida who can't make it up, that's a possibility for them to be able to see that. So it's allowed us to go beyond our immediate community and to grow that way. And that's exciting. We haven't taken full advantage of it yet. We've now gotten back to in-person programming, but that option is still out there, and I think that is a wave of the future that is worth exploring.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to now turn it and see if there are questions from the audience. I've asked Chris Richmond. Chris has a live microphone. If anyone wants to ask any of our presenters, question in the very back. No one has a question.
First of all, thank you three for being here. I think this is a story that needs to be told. Listening to the lessons that your organization learned was important, but it dawned on me that this challenge of the pandemic isn't the only one those organizations have seen. Shortly before that, we had a great recession that had an effect on the same populations you work with. What I'm curious about is whether or not you have any thoughts about what the community as a whole might do to be more resilient when this kind of thing comes up in the future that would help the populations and the groups that you serve. What beyond just what you did to be more flexible, what could the community in general do?
So I honestly, for us, and when I look at it, it's that connection to the community, to have an awareness of what the needs of your neighbors are, to make sure that you're volunteering if you have the ability to get out there and connect as a good neighbor to those around you, but also find the passions that you have and support those organizations. I mean, we have a lot of support, don't get me wrong. We Illinois Department on Aging, we have a lot of those contracts, but there's so many different areas where sometimes we sit back and we kind of wait and we don't bring our talents to the table. Each one of you has a talent that you can bring, or you have a connection to someone. And it's really just staying connected and being passionate about what you as an organization or individual can bring to the table for those individuals, for organizations like us. and just keeping your eyes and ears to the ground, and then sharing some of that back to us. So if you want to be on a committee or a board, but really we talk about social isolation, it includes all of us. It's not just a senior that's getting that, but that's really impacted everyone. So invest in the places that you're passionate about, and that really does genuinely help us. And that's through time, money, the connections that you support and give us. That's what is most important to us.
That was perfect.
I agree that human connection is so important. And so if there are organizations in our community that you enjoy and that you think should survive and you appreciate having in our community, then they need your support. And I look at the arts and I look at these videos that come across on Facebook every now and then. You'll see a prima ballerina in her 90s who is suffering from dementia, non-communicative, and then all of a sudden someone plays the music that she once danced to, and then you see that person come alive. Art affects us in such a deep, personal way. A painting can just speak to a person. It's a very quiet, very personal thing, but if there are groups out there that give you pleasure and you think are worthy, then just remember them in those times that are difficult, and support them in any way you can. If it's going to a ballet or going to an art exhibit or going to a play, to support that organization, to offering volunteer time to help that organization, or even in the really rough times, financial support. But it's more than just the financial support, it's the emotional support. And all arts groups need cheerleaders in the community to help spread the word and to bring in new people who don't know what that can potentially offer you. One tiny story. We did a show called Memphis the Musical back in 2019, which dealt with race relations in the 1950s, 60s. And one story, there was an actor in the cast, and his father, unfortunately, was a very old school, bigoted person, but he came to the show and it opened his eyes, and father and son who had been estranged had a tearful conversation, and the father had been enlightened by seeing this piece of work and seeing it from someone else's perspective. That kind of thing is invaluable. So sometimes we'll say, oh, it's just the arts. Yeah, they're the first thing to go in the schools, whatever. But they do affect us all. We all have that one thing that really touches us deeply. And so support those organizations in good times and in bad.
Any other questions, please?
Yes, I wanted to, in the spirit of the arts being important, I don't see any of you guys as a silo, because especially through my time with the salsa here in Springfield, I have found that at different stages of life, people are probably utilizing your services. At Urban League, when they're kids, and they're as adults, they're becoming involved in the arts. But then they keep that as they're in the senior centers and in the retirement homes. I was wondering, is there someone you can identify in the community, whether it's government or private, that has that holistic understanding that it's not just supporting this or that, but in the conclusion that even within that we have the Hope School, for example, and those people with either physical or mental needs that are excluding them from actually having these kind of talks. So we have to make that extra effort to do outreach to them. Who is interested in that whole path from a child all the way to the nursing home or the senior center? Because I think that this gets disconnected, and usually we talk in terms of the seniors need that, the kids did this, but we never say we, even though we were the kids and we will be the seniors.
One of the great things about the community is that there currently is a resource that is the continuum of care. That is a large continuum of organizations in the community that are addressing those issues of siloed services, where we might be duplicating resources or duplicating service delivery And so conversations are taking place within the Heartlands continuum to understand how do we work together to create a more empowered community. Where are there opportunities for us to collect data that informs us of the direction that we should be moving? There's more information I can share on that, but that is one of the main resources that I would love to share, is that there's a Heartland Continuum of Care that is really working to create a more connected community. There's resources made available through United Way of Central Illinois to continue those conversations for us as service providers, to connect, to share, and to communicate the work that we're doing as one collected community.
And I think, in all fairness to the organizations that we do have in Springfield, we have a tremendous number of organizations, just a huge number. And we, obviously, I speak about senior services, but we also connect with Urban League. We connect with the arts. We connect with all kinds of services. And as organizations, I think we maybe don't do as good a job as we could in some of those areas. By all means, we're always evolving and needing to improve upon those. But really, as a service organization, we're all connected and referring people on a regular basis. So I think we do have a strength, but I think the continuum of care is really definitely a hub of some of those areas.
Any other questions? Yes.
I was just going to add other ways that Marcus touched on it, and that is capacity building. So if you have an influence on funding or funding sources, there aren't a lot of grants that allow you to pay your staff or to have them trained. And the staff that went through this pandemic who are frontline need a lot of help. There needs to be a lot of support for them. Mental health is key. They have suffered and they've seen suffering. So any kind of influence that you have on grant funding that can allow an organization to help the staff, to train the staff, to give the staff tools for the new challenges that we face. Junior League has a capacity grant through the Community Foundation. But also I would say, as citizens, when your elected officials are talking about giving away or helping, giving away, but funding, and they're like, well, they're nonprofits, they don't pay taxes. There has to be some value associated with the nonprofits that equal somebody who's paying taxes. We are the underpinning, we're the foundation of this community. And there needs to be some recognition of that and not a discounting of what nonprofits bring.
Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, up here.
Something came to mind in terms of how this comes upon you sort of unannounced or whatever else, but you have to realize that you have to have certain fixed costs down to a minimum. Is probably, I know Gus went through that program and we found it to be a helpful sort of thing. In other words, always be prepared, I guess. You never know what's going to happen in all the variables like this, but keeping fixed costs are probably really important.
Everyone, thanks again for being here today. The country and our community experienced the Great Resignation with staffing, and you've talked about capacity building of others, but could you talk a little bit about the capacity of your organizations, if you experienced any fallout from the Great Resignation? If you did, are those issues kind of subsided, or are you still grappling with any of those issues? We'd love to hear about it.
So yes, yeah. I always say we are not for profit. I cannot compete with the for-profits. I cannot compete with the government in the funding of support. I always say a lot of the people that work with us are there because they are passionate about what they're doing. But yes, we had many people resign. One, either they were seniors themselves and they were fearful of COVID, and they felt like it was a good time to resign and to retire. We're still struggling. We need caseworkers. We need team members. We think that we're doing really, really good, and then we kind of fall back a little bit. We have about 80 employees serving 4 counties. I will say that the amount of work that is put on us is tremendous. They are very, and again, I always give them kudos, but yes, we have seen a huge spike in turnover. And in a not-for-profit, it's inevitable for us. We kind of laugh and say we're kind of a training ground because we start out and people get their experience and then they move on. And I kudos to all of those people. That is part of life, that we do that. But we have seen a tremendous amount of more so lately. And so if you know anybody, go to our website.
Same for the Springfield Urban League. Compassion fatigue, burnout fatigue are things that we had to make a part of our orientation, and now it's every 6-month training. We've included and incorporated and boosted up the conversations that we have, a part of accessing the resources within our health insurance for mental health, for social emotional health, because I think the one thing that people truly don't understand for a lot of the individuals who, including myself, who work and lead in nonprofit organizations is that we have our own challenges, our own burdens, our own empty cups. And then we come to work every day to fill the cups of others and to encourage and provide hope and optimism to our community where it's oftentimes missing. When those cups get empty, we do see turnover. One of our biggest areas is teachers. And I'm sure that every school district across the country has said this clarion call, but we are certainly in need of teachers. And we understand as a part of a nonprofit, and then a nonprofit that provides early childhood education, that being able to be flexible and adaptable and to compensate to the level that we wish we could for our teachers is one of our greatest challenges. The expectations for education are increasing, and so we provide those things internally. But one of our fixed costs is our grant dollars at sometimes. There is a finite number that we have, and we have to figure out how to support the wholeness of a teacher, the wholeness of our staff, while also delivering quality services with cost of paper and lights and everything else increasing. And so, yes, we've seen the impact of the Great Resignation, but it has birthed new individuals who have came in, who share a passion to do their part to uplift the community. And so I'm grateful for those individuals that we have that are new, and those who have started to return, who have seen that the grass may not be as green on the other side, and that the feeling that you get knowing that every Zoom call, every meeting, every long night, every early morning, you do not have to ask yourself, did I make a difference today? I know every day that I made a difference. And I hope and we push our staff to feel the same and to know that their time and talents are not taken for granted.
We had a lot of turnover as well, not just in staff, but in resident organizations and volunteers. A lot of that was just natural over a 2-year period. And we are just as solid now as we were before. We were very fortunate in the effect every time someone would go, we'd have someone else come in who was really good. People don't go into this line of work for the money. They come in for other reasons. They come in because they love the arts. They come in because they love the mission. They love the educational aspects of it. So we have had changes, but I think change is, again, just going with the flow, and this too will pass. That it's just kind of natural for what we do. We have noticed a little change in 2 different kinds of points of view. One, people can't wait to get back, And others, people are hesitant to come back. Actors, ushers, audience members, down the line, you have two different distinct personalities that we've discovered. But it is working itself out. One of the things about coming back that we've discovered, it was a lot harder to reopen, or as hard to reopen as it was to close down, just because of the new challenges we faced and because, frankly, because of the divide that had developed in the country and in our community about guidelines and, well, why are you making me do that? Or I'm not going to donate anymore because you told me to wear a mask. And that was very frustrating. So again, I think that all played into the element. I think there was fatigue for a lot of people. It's like, I've been here a long time now, and I want to take the next step in my life. We are a place where people kind of come to get their start and then move on to something else. So we've had a lot of people come in right out of college, work here for 5 or 10 years, and then go on to leadership positions elsewhere in the community. And I'm really proud when that happens. I think that's a great sign that we're connected within the community, and I love to see these people continue to grow. And the organizations, a lot of their goals changed during the pandemic. They had time to sit back and think and reassess. And but again, for everyone who went on their way for whatever reason, we've had someone come in to take that spot, and things are solid.
Great, great. Carol, Marcus, Gus, thank you very much. Please join me in thanking our. And before I close, you all should have received an email earlier this week inviting you to a reception we're having on Wednesday, August 31st. It's our opportunity to thank and recognize Bob Gray for the efforts he's done for the Citizens Club. That event starts at 4:30. There will be remarks at 5:15. I hope you're able to join us. Thank you for attending. Our next program will be Friday, September 23rd. Thank you.